Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a... No, it's not. It's 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock on a Sunday. It's time for a Q&A. I'm so sorry. I'm busy this week. I've got a 3-day shoot with Murphy's. So I'm batching a bunch of videos at the beginning of the week so you guys don't go without a video. And this is about the 4th in a row I've shot. So yeah, it's 12 o'clock. It's a Sunday. It's time for a Q&A. Now, this is where I take all the questions that you ask over the course of the week and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. First of all, a couple of things. One, if you've watched this channel, if you've watched one video, interacted, subscribed, commented, I appreciate it. Really, I do from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. And if you caught me at the Tricks Magic Convention Monday and Tuesday, I was there with Nemid Phoenix and Thomas Maloney. If you came up and said hi, hello, thanks for coming up to me. It was an amazing convention. Now, with that all being said, I'm going to answer a load of questions. Now, if I haven't answered your question, I'm sorry. It means I've filmed this before you asked it. I typically film this on a Tuesday. Today is a Wednesday. So please make sure that you get the questions in as soon as possible. If I miss your question, leave it down below. I'll get to it next week. Outside of that, you get my raw, unfiltered opinions. So, you know, if I think that a question is going to require a longer answer, I will get to it at some point in the future. But with that all being said, I'm going to get into it right now. I'm going to get into the Q&A. So let's go into this week's Q&A. Okay, so the first question is from Matthew Wendell, who says, "Hi Craig, I'm looking where to find a template or instructions on how to write the thing you give the tech team in the theatre, which has all your music and lighting cues. Not too sure what the word for that is. It's called a tech rider or a technical rider. And basically, you don't need it for your own gigs, obviously, but when you're going into a situation where you're performing on stage and you're working at an event, so definitely if you're working with a theatre, you need one. If you're working with a holiday park or something like that, it's useful to have one. But if you're working at an event, I do a lot of corporate events. I used to do the holiday park circuit years ago. I used to do cruises years ago. Now I have a family, I don't do that. But what I do quite regularly is I do corporate events, and they will book me and they'll say, look, we've got a tech team, we've got a sound desk, they've got sound and lights that they've set up. I can send them that technical rider, and that has a lot of the information in it that they're going to need, right? So it's a tech rider. It's useful to have one as you start to get more and more gigs, especially on stage. I've spoken to Michael, and we are going to put it in the description down below. So in the description down below, there's going to be somewhere in there a link to a Google Drive page. That Google Drive page is a version of the technical rider that I use that was created about 15 years ago. Feel free to use that. You might want to adapt it because it talks about illusion shows and different shows and stage size. You might want to adapt it because it talks about the mics that we use as well. But, excuse me, that's everything that you need. So if you want it, technical rider, link down below, go grab it, and you can adapt it however you want it. Okay, so the next question is Caleb D'Amico, who says, this is a follow-up question from my question last week on restaurant set lists. What do you think of these new edited sets? I will capitalize the changes from last week. I do want to say as well, by the way, if anybody wants to put their set lists in the comments, I'll happily do this with anybody, not just Caleb. Let's have a look. So he's got set 1, Loaded by Marcus Eddy, Spectrum Sharpie, and the Ambitious card, card to box, card to phone, Omnideck finish. That's a great set. Absolutely amazing set. Loaded is a perfect opener. I love Loaded as an opener. It works really well. So Loaded, great. I was actually, if you went and saw the masterclass that I did on Friday with Tom and Nemid, I was quite surprised that both of them talk about when they open a card set, they actually use Chicago Opener or Red Hot Mama, which was a surprise to me that they both did that. But I mean, it is an amazing trick. But yeah, okay, so Loaded, Marcus Eddy, brilliant. I love the fact that you're producing the deck of cards, then you're giving the deck to someone to shuffle, you're bringing out Spectrum Sharpie, you're doing the Sharpie routine, and then you're giving them the Sharpie, and you're going to the Ambitious card, card to box, with phone, card to phone, Omnideck to finish. Brilliant set. Absolutely perfect. I wouldn't change that at all. So set 2, Night Worker stroke Night Flight with Jumbo Coin Production ending. That's great. That's really, really good. Extreme Burn and then Credit Swipe. I love the whole money type thing going on there. I do like that. Typically, I always say that you want to use a jumbo coin to finish a set because the jumbo coin is such a strong finish that when you you kind of make that jumbo coin appear, everyone's just like, what? And they stop dead. And it's a great ending to a routine. Having said that, I think it works in this situation. And the reason I think it works is because you've got a really nice because obviously the Nightshade coin set, which is where Nightworker and Night Flight is from, use older coins, right? They use Eisenhower dollars or half dollars. So you could kind of almost thread that through and, you know, hey, magicians have been doing magic with money for years, and the first type of magic that was done with money was with coins, and magicians would do trick with coins, and you do that, and you say, now obviously, as coins became less popular, magicians kind of gravitated over to do money with magic with folding money. And then you go into extreme burn. You say these days, a lot of people don't carry money around with them. They do carry a credit card. You could even say, do you carry money around with you? Most people carry a credit card. And the thing you need to be careful of is you need to be careful with magicians, because if you've got a credit card, they can steal your data very, very easily. I'd like to demonstrate that. I think that's a great set. I think the structure of that is brilliant. Also, it's nice to see Credit Swipe in someone's set. It's only just come out. And I'm really excited about this. This is such a working routine. I've been using this for 3 years. I've got 2 different versions of Credit Swipe. I've got one that I do at gigs, which is like the full 10-card setup, and I have the kind of the smaller routine that's set up in my wallet for when I want to do like a smaller version of Credit Swipe. You know, when I want to do it as an EDC type thing. But Credit Swipe is great, and if you've tried it, you'll know the reactions are on par with a jumbo coin production, especially when you have that one go in their hand and it prints. End of, game over at that point. That's insane. So yeah, again, I think that's a great set. This is wonderful. Set 3, so you've expanded on set 3, because it was just Stand Up Monty and Magic Button, wasn't it? So you've got Super Commercial Copper Silver Opener. Super Commercial Copper Silver. That's again from the Nightshade coin set. And that's my favourite copper silver routine there. So, and I use that as an opener an awful lot. So, yeah, I'm not going to say anything about that. And then into Stand Up Monty, that's great, but you want to have a reason to go into Stand Up Monty. So, you know, make sure that you've got a way to link the 2 routines. Make sure your transition is solid. You know, you've just done a coin trick. You could a good link there would be, or a good transition there would be to say, now when people see me make these coins change places so quickly, they think, whoa, that guy has to have sleight of hand skills. And in all honesty with you, I have spent years practicing sleight of hand, and it means that I can actually use those skills to cheat at cards. That's why people don't play cards with me, because honestly, I can cheat you and you won't even realize it. Would you like me to give you an example? We'll take the concepts of what I did with that coin trick, and we'll show you what that would look like if I was playing a game with you. Have you ever heard of 3-card Monty? Okay, we'll do a simple version, and boom, you're into it. Great, brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Yeah. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on this channel, but what I will say to you is I've done Stand Up Monty for years, both as the traditional way of doing it, but I've also done it for years with photographs. I don't know if you've ever considered that before, but I've got pictures of Ryland and Thea, and I printed them out so they kind of look really, really nice. And I've got pictures of Ryland and Thea, and I've made double-sided pictures by gluing them together. I went to Max Spielman, which is a photographic place over here in the UK, and I printed the pictures out and had them trimmed perfectly. So basically, I reach into my pocket and I say, I've got pictures of my kids here. Would you like to see them? This is a picture of my daughter Thea. This is a picture of my son Ryland. Actually, should we play a little game with these? And you do exactly the same as Stand Up Monty, but you use pictures, and it makes it more relatable. It makes it not a card trick. So that's, you know, you don't have to do that, but I just thought I'd mention that. And then Magic Button is just the perfect finale. It really is. I love Magic Button. That's great. And then set 4, Level Up, which is great. Yeah, Level Up is great. Stand Up Monty. Interesting that, yeah, Level Up works as a lead into Stand Up Monty, just like the previous set, because with Level Up, obviously, you're talking about games. And then you can say, obviously, you know, these days people play games on computers and Switch and VR and so on and so forth. But years ago, people would play games with playing cards. You know, well, people still do, but, you know, something like that, and link it that way. What I would encourage you to do is think of a presentation with Position Impossible that kind of ties into that whole games thing. So yeah, that's a great set, man. That's an awesome set. What do you say at the end? I really appreciate your tips on making this more than you could know. You're more than welcome. Also, do you have any advice performing to different groups of people with these set lists? For example, what would you do with an alpha male? In that scenario, would it be good to switch it up and have something like Extreme Burn as an opener, then go into Stand-Up Monty and then blow their minds with Position Impossible? Lastly, thanks so much for your advice last week on the formal close-up show for my grandmother's friends. It really helped. You're more than welcome, buddy, on every count. In terms of alpha males, you know, you should always be adaptable with your set. You should always, like, be in a position where you can change things around very, very quickly. That's, you know, flexibility is the key. It's why I'm not very scripted with myself. I have certain points that I know I'm going to hit, but I do go in a lot of different directions. But in terms of dealing with an alpha male, my advice with an alpha male is a lot of the time you can win them over by making them the star of the show. And you'll know in your warm-up, you'll know in your introduction to the table if you're dealing with an alpha male or not. And if you are, my advice would be to have a trick that you can do that makes them the star of the show. And there's a few different ways you can do that, but make them the star of the show. Because then they will be your biggest ally. You don't need heckler stoppers a lot of the time. Yeah, sometimes you do, but a lot of the time it's just about making them the star of the show and making them realise that you're going to make them look brilliant. Now, the way that I do that is with my trick empowerment using Flip a Coin, which you can learn from my Vanishing Ink Masterclass. That's the place I publish that. So yeah, that's typically the way that I'll go. And I'll actually turn around and I'll say, look, I'm not going to do this trick. You are going to be the star of the show. I'm going to have you do everything. When you finish, this round of applause is going to be for you. And I do a really strong coin routine. And at the end, this guy realizes that I'm making him look good and he's on side. So think about having a trick. Think about a trick that you can use, that you can insert into one of your set lists that will make that alpha male feel like they're the star of the show. Other than that, you're on the right track, man. Keep it up. Okay, so the next question is Hazabra, who says, hi, Craig. Brian Hazard again. Hey, Brian, hope you're well. I watched the 5 levels video and I'm definitely a trick collector. I've spent an embarrassing amount of money on magic books compared with my current competence level. And I'm a beginner technician. I put an obsessive amount of time into practicing sleights and routines, mostly with coins and cards. Here's where it gets interesting. I know I have a performer in me because I spent countless hours on stage as a lead singer in bands when I was younger. And likewise, I know I have an artist in me because I've written, recorded and produced music, as well as designed and published games. And finally, I know I have a business person in me because I work in product strategy as my day job. My hang-up and fear is the... hang on a minute. This is not loading. Hang on.
High quality neutral.
There you go. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can get it to load. Just 1 minute. Does it cut off halfway through? No, that's not loading. It doesn't seem to carry on. Excuse me. It doesn't seem to carry on beyond that. It says my fear is lack of, and my hang-up is fear and lack of confidence at the technician level. It doesn't say anything else on there. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong here, but that's all I'm seeing. I can't see anything else. That's very, very strange. Okay, right, all right. I'm gonna go with this based on what I think you're saying. So you're talking about how you. Oh, hang on. No, still not working. Okay. Right, okay, I'm going to go into what I think. So you are currently a trick collector and you're a beginner technician. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I put a video out about the magician's triangle, and it was like the 5 levels of when you become a magician, where you start and where you ultimately want to end up and how you move along the various different levels. So you're saying that you are currently at the beginner technical level and you are a trick collector and you want to move on to higher levels, but you have a fear or lack of confidence at the technical level. Okay, right. Perfect. So first of all, one thing that I want to clarify with that video is somebody said to me in one of the comments of this video, they said, You know, what about if I don't want to become a full-time pro? What if I don't want to be at that final business level? And that's absolutely fine. You don't have to. You could end up at the artist level, and that's absolutely fine. My point is that there are 5 levels that you can progress to. And realistically, in order to get to that business level, you have to go to the artist level. Now, some people will only ever want to be at the trick collector level. They just want to come into magic, they have fun with it, they buy tricks, they learn tricks, they show them to friends, and they don't want to progress beyond that. And that is absolutely fine. I'm not saying that you have to be at that businessman level. No, not at all. You can go into whatever level that you want to go into. It's just, this is, in my opinion, how you scale up as a person that's getting into magic. Now, in terms of your thing, nothing wrong with being a trick collector at all. I still am. I collect tricks. I buy tricks sometimes just because I want to know how it works. I justify it to myself and say I'm going to put it in my show. And sometimes that's not the case. I just buy tricks because I just want to learn the secret. So there's nothing wrong with being a trick collector. And I think in some respects, a lot of magicians always stay at that trick collector level, but not all of them. I know there's a lot of professional magicians and they don't buy any tricks. They literally just buy refill flash paper and refill playing cards, whatever the case may be. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But it sounds to me like you want to move up to that final level. And you're saying that your hang-up is your fear and lack of confidence at the technician level. The thing you need to understand is learning a lot of intricate sleight of hand isn't necessarily an important thing to becoming a performer as a magician. As long as you've got a basic, you know, I've always said to people, you do a double lift, you do a card control, and, you know, you just look technically proficient with the deck of cards. If you can just do a control, a force, a double lift, and you can look competent with the deck of cards, you can absolutely get by. So Thea is really into close-up magic, and she's learning card magic at the moment. And the first 2 weeks I focused on teaching her how to do a waterfall shuffle and how to handle the cards nicely and how to do a kick cut. And, you know, a lot of people, when they see somebody holding cards like that, immediately you look professional, right? And I've said to Thea, if you can do a force, if you can do a card control, if you can do a double lift, you can do a lot of routines. You could go and be a professional close-up magician just with those 3 or 4 different sleights. So a lot of the time, people get scared to perform because they've spent so long learning really complicated, difficult moves with sleight of hand. And they then get nervous performing to real people because a lot of the stuff that they know is complicated, difficult, sleight of hand based magic, right? So you look at, so for example, I met somebody at a convention last year and he asked me, how does he go and perform professionally? He loves magic and he can't perform professionally. He can perform one-on-one to magicians at magic conventions, but he can't perform professionally. And he gets really nervous every single time he pulls out a deck of cards, and he gets into a position where his head is racing and somebody will say, do a trick, and he can't even think of anything to do. So I said to him, show me a trick. And he was nervous and his hands were shaking, and he pulled it off, but he was doing SWE shifts, but he was making them look pretty bad because he was so nervous. So his hands were shaking, but I said to him, show me your 1,000 timer, show me the routine that you feel most confident performing, the one that you know inside out, back to front, that you've practiced a million times. And he did this routine, and it required 3 or 4 like SWE shifts, it required this, it required a full deck half pass. And I'm like, what? I said to him afterwards, I said, why are you using so much sleight of hand? And he's like, well, I know all the moves. And I'm like, yeah, you may know all the moves, but it's all of those individual difficult moves that are causing you to be worried every time you go out, because that's all you're doing. All you're doing is, all you know is routines using all of the... I said, show me the simplest trick you know. Show me the simplest trick you know. And it took him a couple of minutes to think about it. And his simplest trick used a cull. It culled like 5 or 6 cards. It used 3 like triple turnovers. And I'm like, dude, that's the simplest trick you know. No wonder you're nervous going out and performing to real people. The way to actually get to that next level and become a performer is go out and perform. And nobody said that going out and performing needs to involve a lot of difficult sleight of hand, because it doesn't. It can be going out and doing a bunch of stuff that's self-working. So I've got a friend that I'm working with. He's in the Netrix on the gold membership. And he's been on the gold membership for a while. And I've been speaking to him. He said to me a few weeks ago, he said, I wanna perform. I know all these tricks. I buy all these tricks. I practice all the time. But I never perform to people. I always get nervous thinking about performing to people. And I said, right, this is what you're going to do. You're going to think of the easiest trick you know. And I suggested to him a cut deeper force. And the reason I suggested a cut deeper force is because it is completely self-working if you actually think about it. You can give the deck to the spectator. You can have them cut a small packet, turn it face up. You can have them cut deeper, turn it face up. You don't even have to touch the deck. And I said, now, think about this. Look, I'm gonna have you just do a prediction. You're going to put a prediction of a card in an envelope. You're going to give that envelope to somebody. You're going to bring out a deck of cards, let them hold it, have them cut twice, cut deeper force themselves, have them look at the card, and then have them open up the envelope. And he said, that's just a force. I'm like, yeah, it's just a force. But magicians, sometimes they forget how powerful a force can be. We look at it as magicians as a force, but lay people who have no idea about forcing cards, they don't. That from their point of view, you predicted a card that they were going to pick, and they picked it in a very fair way. I said, think about this for a minute. If I put an envelope down on the table and I had a card in it, and I said to you, name a card, and then you opened up that envelope and the card was in there, would that be a good trick? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, why? He said, because it's impossible, because it's so clean, because they could have named any card. I was like, yeah, but to a lay person who has no idea about magical methods, them cutting the deck twice is just as powerful. It's the equivalent of you naming a card. So just do that. I was like, I know it's simple, and I know you know stuff that's way more complicated, but if you know the stuff, but you're nervous about performing it because it's too technically difficult, then you don't really know it. I said, the most important thing to becoming a performer is going out and performing, seeing the reactions that you're getting, understanding that people love what you do, and then you'll get the bug for it, and you'll go out and perform more and more and more, and we'll have to fight you with a stick to stop you from going out and performing. But step one is making you understand that people aren't going to catch you. And that's ultimately the big problem. A lot of people that go out there, they're worried about performing because they're worried that they're going to get caught out. And normally that's because they're trying to do something incredibly difficult. So go out and do this. So he went out and did it, and he came back and he went, oh my God, the reactions are amazing. People absolutely love it. I had somebody like freaking out and saying, show me another trick, show me another trick. I was like, yeah. So first of all, you felt confident going out and performing because it's something that's very easy, that you know can't possibly go wrong, and you're not going to get nervous because you're not even touching the deck. But then secondly, the reactions are really strong. You don't need to go through really ridiculous sleight of hand in order to become a performer. The most important thing to get to that next level on the triangle, in order to get to that level where you are a performer, you have to force yourself to go out and perform. Look at Matt in my office. He's technically not that great at all. He doesn't have time to practice. He doesn't learn new sleight of hand. But because of his ability to perform, and because of his ability to speak on stage very, very clearly and project his voice, and because of all of his acting training and so on and so forth, he can go out and he can kill it in the real world with very simple tricks. I know he's expanding his repertoire at the moment, but for a very long time, he went out with an electronic dice and a Stebbins deck. And he would go out and he'd get great reactions using an electronic dice and a Stebbins deck. So don't make things difficult for yourself. Make things easy for yourself. Great. If you want to carry on learning sleight of hand, that's amazing. Look, I have spent years learning sleight of hand with coins. Technically, I'm really good. I'm not the best in the world, but I'm probably better at coins than I am at anything else. And yet a lot of the time, if I'm in the real world, I'm going to do something very, very simple. I'm going to do something, because the most important thing for me is perform something that I'm comfortable with, perform something that the audience I know are going to get a kick out of. Credit swipe is a perfect example. It's very, very easy to do. It's one move. But damn, it gets great reactions. And I think that's the most important thing. So to get to that next level, force yourself to go and perform. When's the best time for you to go out and start performing? Last year. When's the next best time? right now. Okay, so Leather Lips says, quick and easy question. Do you prefer red or blue back decks? Red back decks every single step of the way. Red back, red back, red back. I do a lot of stuff where I'm writing on the back of cards, and it doesn't show up very well on a blue deck. So red back, absolutely 100% red back deck. Okay, so Mystic Tom says, I would like to see a 5x5 on the Ellis Ring. Absolutely, I'm putting that together very, very soon. I'm going to put an Ellis Ring 5x5 together. I'm even thinking about putting a section in the Netrix all about the Ellis Ring. Okay, so the next question is RDG Tex, who says, hello, Craig. I made a donation to the Laptop Repair Fund on behalf of Magic TV. I'm still not entirely sure what was behind everything that happened, which puzzled me, especially since the whole ordeal followed such a positive review of Magic Button. What I did notice is that while fences were being mended, and possibly during that time as well, I'm not sure, as I had fallen quite ill then and have since recovered. Incidentally, I think I had the same bug you had. I have a lingering but milder cough like yours. I honestly don't know how you managed to stay on your feet through it, but I digress. Man, yeah, I was ill. The accusations made against your character from that period were being used by trolls to contrast the positivity shared by others. I ran a search on, and as far as I could tell, most of that negativity has been removed. However, I noticed the 2 videos from that period still appear, and I was hoping you might consider removing them. I really enjoyed the video with all the testimonials, but perhaps it's time to lay those particular issues to rest. I believe this gesture, this olive branch, will have much greater impact than the donation alone. Even so, I'm still very angry of what was said and done to you and your family. Those were direct and personal attacks. If that happened to me, I don't think I'd be so forgiving, but you asked for donations and encouraged extending an olive branch, and I've done both. Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't even know those videos were still live, and as soon as I've finished this Q&A, I'll take them down. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people aren't even going to know what I'm talking about with this, and that's absolutely fine. I don't want to get into it. What I do want to say is I don't think it's going to do any good. I haven't had any acknowledgement either way regarding the donation or anything else. In fact, on the latest review, there's an indirect dig at me in the comments and a direct dig, which is fine. Look, it is what it is. I'll take those videos down. Absolutely not a problem. I forgot they were still up. And we'll just move on. You know, since I walked away from this community for a little while, I took 3 weeks off, as you guys know. I felt a lot better, and one of the reasons is I'm not taking any negativity that I see online about me into my headspace. Like, you know, I checked out a review and saw a couple of people saying stuff about me, and you know what? I just went, whatever. Anybody who says something on the channel gets deleted immediately, because I don't care. I don't want that. I don't need it. I want to focus on what I'm doing on this channel, which is trying to provide a service that helps people. And, you know, without being big-headed, I don't think there's anybody that's doing as much on YouTube for the community as I am right now. And I just want to continue doing that. So, yeah, thanks for the long post. I really appreciate it. And, yeah, it is what it is. Okay, so the next question again is from RGT Tex, who says, hello, Craig. Do you have any examples of extreme or unexpected performance conditions and how you adapted when faced with situations where you couldn't perform your planned program or effect, whether due to weather, technical issues, or problems with the venue? How do you ensure the show goes on when the unexpected happens? I had this conversation with Ryan the other day. He was doing a half-an-hour show, and we'd planned out the half-an-hour show, and he'd packed it all and everything. And I said, take another case, put Venom Cube in there, put your cups and balls in there, put egg bag in there, you know, put the stuff in there that's really small that you do, that you're comfortable with, that you've done for years. And he's like, why? We've got the show, we know what we're doing. And I said, Ryan, you get to an environment, you get to a gig, you never know what situation you're going to find yourself in. And having backup stuff with you will save you. And even though we'd done all the research into what the venue was and everything, he was planning on doing a lot of stuff with thread. He had a full dancing Hank routine he was doing. He was going to be doing dancing cane. He was even going to be doing the flying linking rings. He was going to do a lot of thread-based magic. And when we got to the venue, doing magic with thread was just completely inappropriate. It just wouldn't have worked. The lighting conditions just made it completely unworkable. And I turned around to him and I said, now, it's not a problem, because you take that 15 minutes out of that 30-minute show and you replace it with the stuff that you bought in the case. And he's like, oh, thank God we bought that. And I said, yeah, from now on, make sure that you always take backup material. And again, I did a show with Matt and Kat, an illusion show recently. And we planned a big show because they wanted a big show. And when we got there, the stage that they'd set up for us really was tiny, very, very small. And there was really only room for 2 illusions. And there was no dance floor or anything like that. So we couldn't like do anything on the floor. We only really had 2 illusions. And also there was a gangway out into the audience, and they wanted us to go down that gangway and perform in the middle of the audience. And again, I had backups of loads of different stuff with me. Half of the illusions that we planned, we couldn't do. One of them wouldn't even fit on the stage. But it wasn't an issue because we moved on to plan B. And I think that's what you always have to do. You have to expect the unexpected when you're a performer. And I've been in every situation a million times. I'm just reading your question again now. Technical problems I've had. I remember the very first illusion. No, not the first, but the very first private gig illusion show I did. And it did not go well. And one of the reasons it didn't go well is because I linked into the sound guy's desk, and he was in control of the music, and he was turning the sound down. It was a horrible situation because it was a big room, and he was basically messing around with the sound, and he thought he was helping, but he really wasn't. So these days, I insist, unless it's somebody who's an expert at dealing with soundtracks, I typically will be in control of my own sound, especially an illusion show. I will be in control of I'll be in control of the music myself. When Rylan goes and does a show, I'm typically the one that's in charge of the music because I know his cues better than anyone else. I bought a really expensive Bluetooth connector that will work with any room. It will work at a football pitch. And when I get to a venue and I say to the sound desk, I'm like, right, okay, this is the music. Have they got the cues? And I say, no, this is this. Plug it into your speaker. I'm going to connect it to my laptop, and I'm going to have my assistant in the wings control the music for me. They're happy with that because they don't have to worry about it. I'm happy with that because I know it's going to be done right. I've had situations in the past where mics have broken, so now I always take a backup mic. I've had situations in the past where batteries have failed, so now we take extra batteries, and there's always one set on charge. I've had situations in the past where weather has called stuff off, and there's nothing you can do with that. Probably the worst unexpected thing that can happen is if you end up with kind of what could potentially be a hostile audience. I remember doing a gig with Nemid Phoenix and Kat Stanley. It was an illusion show, and it was in Birmingham. It was about 5 or 6 years ago now. And it was a big corporate event. And when we got there were these actors, this acting troupe. And we were setting up our backdrop and everything, and we were setting up all the illusions behind the backdrop because the client wanted... This acting troupe, what they did is they were planning a fake wedding. And so they were actually going to be in the audience as guests, and they were doing this like fake wedding thing where comedy happened during the course of the wedding or something like that. And then when that finished, they would then hand over to us, and we would do our show. So they were a bit funny with us, or like, you can't set up a backdrop. I'm like, I have to set up a backdrop. We need a backdrop for our show, and I can't exactly set it up when you've finished while everyone is in the audience. So I'm going to make it as small as possible. I'm going to put everything behind it, and I'm going to keep out your way, but I have to set up a backdrop. So I did. They were, whatever they were a bit arty with us, but we then went away and had a meal in the restaurants while they were doing their thing in the function room. And we came back in about 20 minutes from the end, and they just about finished. And they were in a separate side room, like packing everything away. And 2 or 3 of them were literally in tears. And the main actor guy that ran the troupe, he was like, that was horrific. That was the worst thing I've ever... Good luck, they're going to be terrible. They've been drinking. It was mainly blokes in the audience. They'd been drinking. They were... not particularly in the right frame of mind to see what they were doing. And then the MD came into the side room, and he's like, oh, right, are you going to be set up soon? And I was like, yeah, they've finished. We're just going to move the illusions around the front, and then we'll be ready. And he went, in front of the actors, he went, well, I hope you're not as shit as they were, because they were fucking shite. And I'm like, wow. And it's kind of like the show that we had planned had to go out the window. It had to go out the window because we knew that if I went and did what I had planned, it wouldn't have worked. They would have turned on us. And it's that experience of knowing that. So, you know, I had a chat with Kat and Nemid, and I was like, look, you know, let me take the lead on this. I think I know how to deal with it. And when he introduced us on stage, he went, well, the first lot were crap. These lot probably ain't going to be any better. Here they are, slightly unusual. And rather than, you know, normally the opening to the Slightly Unusual show is music starts, we come running out, we have a couple of big high-impact illusions to beginning the thing. And I just came out on my own, and I spent about, I kind of took the approach that I would take at somewhere like Smoke and Mirrors, in that I did a lot of crowd work. It was probably 10 or 12 minutes before we even did an illusion or even a trick. And for that first 10 minutes, I was just doing crowd work and taking the piss out of the main guy and out of other people as well. And that got them on side. Really, really quickly got them on side, because there was this guy that was just standing there taking the piss out of everyone, and that's what they wanted to see. Then we did magic, but we did the sort of magic where we were taking the piss out of them as well. And would that work in a lot of environments? No. Is it important to have that ability to turn things around on a dime? Absolutely. So yeah, probably a longer answer to the question that it needed, but hopefully that answers the question to you. Okay, so the next question is from Skippy Pictures, who says, hi Craig, hope all's well for you and the little tribe. Very good, thank you. I tried to write to you on Facebook, but obviously it didn't arrive in your unwanted or spam messages. I'm terrible at Facebook messages, I'm so sorry. I'd like to know how you change your ink for chop. Mine is not really empty, but I prefer to anticipate. You often say it's explained in the tutorial, but I never found the information. In any case, thanks for everything you do for magic enthusiasts. Next Wednesday, I'll do my first children's show. I'm so happy, and if I pass this baptism by fire, I intend to reduce the percentage of my work to embark on a part-time basis in this wonderful art. I'll probably be able to film the show. I will surely come back to you for a little assessment. Absolutely. Thanks for everything. Julio dos Santos. Also, sorry for my English. I speak French. Your English was amazing. Right, okay. So, to change the ink in Chop, it's very, very simple. First of all, you have to remove the nib of the pen. Okay, so all you're going to do is you're going to take the Sharpie, and to remove the nib of the pen, you grab the, keep the lid on. You grab the lid, you grab the pen, and you kind of very gently go up and down like this. And your goal is to separate the nib from the barrel of the pen. And if you do it slowly, you'll feel it slowly coming out. And eventually you do this, you do this, you do this, it'll just pop straight off. Now, when it pops straight off, get yourself a napkin. If you tip out the contents, you're going to see the gimmick for Chop there, and you're also going to see the ink barrel, okay? And depending on how they've made the Chop, depending on which you've got and so on and so forth, what you'll tend to find is the ink barrel is divided into two, because obviously the gimmick needs to be in the middle for it to work. And it's the ink barrel that's closer to the nib that's going to feed the pen, which is why there's less ink in Chop, because we've had to adapt the ink barrel. So then get yourself another get yourself another Sharpie, a normal Sharpie, remove the nib of that one as well, and tip out the cartridge inside. Get a pair of scissors, cut that cartridge to the same length of the one that you tipped out of Chop, and then put everything back inside exactly the same way, but put the new ink cartridge, cut down ink cartridge in there, screw the nib back in, and then you should be good to go, because then what's going to happen is you're going to have a fresh ink cartridge that's inking that nib area, and it's going to mean that Chop is going to work again for as long as you want it to. So hopefully that makes sense. It's not a difficult thing to do. It takes about 5 minutes. Your hands are going to get a little messy, but then you're going to be good for probably 6 months. And with regards to the children's show, congratulations. That's what this channel's all about. It's all about helping magicians level up, whatever that may be. So thank you for letting me know. Congratulations, and keep me abreast of your journey. Okay, so the next question is from Puncala, who says, hi Craig, you mentioned two things in your magician's hierarchy of needs video. One, that you have tricks you love performing but don't suit your character, and two, that you have many tricks of your own that you thought were brilliant but didn't resonate with an audience. How about making a video of those on your channel? I'd be especially interested in the failed tricks, as there's an opportunity of learning there. P.S. I'm getting married on Saturday, and I'm performing your version of Anniversary Waltz to my future wife. Amazing. First of all, congratulations. Congratulations, congratulations. One more time, congratulations. Let me know how that anniversary waltz goes. And second of all, that's a great video. That's a great video idea, like 5 tricks or 10 tricks that didn't make the cut as a physical product. I think that's a great idea. Absolutely 100%. Leave it with me and I will get to that. You focus on your wedding, and thank you very much for giving me the idea. Okay, so the next question is Ross McCabe, who says, good morning. Recently, I've been asked to bring a few tricks to a small 18th birthday celebration, which I was already invited to. Previously, I've performed tricks socially when the opportunity arose, including Stranger's Gallery, Ishihara Test, Transfer and Surge, and the Bag Reborn. I have other effects I've practiced but never done in public, including the Infinity Deck and Little Holes. I'd appreciate your thoughts on the best effects and how to use them. So what I would say is, you know, this is a great opportunity for you to go and perform. This is a great opportunity for you to go and do your thing. But, you know, if you're not nervous, then go for it with anything. But my advice would be, if it's your first kind of thing where they're wanting you to actually do magic and you're at an event and there's lots of people there, I would stick with what you know. I would stick with the tricks that you've done a million times, that you're comfortable with, because it's already going to be a little bit nerve-wracking carrying a bunch of stuff around and you know, having that pressure of performing. I would very honestly stick to the stuff that you are used to. And if that means that, you know, and maybe throw one new thing in, you know, the Infinity Deck or whatever, throw something in that you feel that you think, because I mean, the Infinity Deck is very, very easy ultimately at the end of the day. There's nothing really difficult about the Infinity Deck, so you could do that as well. But yeah, go look at the Setlist video that I did on Magic TV. If you just type in how to create set lists into YouTube, Craig Petty Magic TV, it'll come up. And go and watch that and learn how to create some set lists out of the material that you're comfortable with. And then once you've actually got those set lists, go out and start performing. Go out and start doing it. But, you know, unless you are super confident, I would focus on the stuff that you know is going to work. Okay, so the next question is Bay JMB, who says, another great video, Craig. Thank you for sharing so much with us. You're more than welcome. Questions for this week. I watched a Q&A from a while ago, and you talked about having videos on the Netrix being able to be downloaded. Are you still planning on adding this or no? Not. Yes, they are. All of the videos on the Netrix are able to be downloaded. There's a little button at the top right. It says download video, and you can download it straight onto whatever the device is. They've been downloadable from the very first second that the Netrix launched. So yeah, you can definitely, that's a thing that happens already. So 100%. I know you have always wanted to learn the hot shot cut. Have you ever tried to learn from Chris Ramsey's video on it, as he's been quite helpful for me, and he's given a couple of options for that cut that might be easier for you? No, I haven't. I didn't know that Chris did a video on it, so I will go and check that out. Thank you very much. I'd basically written off the hot shot cut, but if there's something that I can look at that will make it easier for me to learn, I'm all in. And lastly, you say, speaking of Chris Ramsey, excuse me, speaking of Chris Ramsey, what do you think of the secret 52 Magicians Club that he's in, that was started by Daniel Madison and Laura London? And to go with that, since all the members are specific cards in the deck, what card would you want to be? And is there any card you've got that would make you want to leave? That if you got it, it'd make you want to leave. I'm really not into secret clubs. I think the whole thing is bullshit. I've got to be completely honest with you. Oh, 52 of the best magicians in the world, and each one's a playing card. I really couldn't give two shits. I hate that kind of exclusivity, that whole I'm better than you and I'm in this secret club. I just think it's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. So what do I think of the 52 Magicians Club? I think it's ridiculous. I'd rather have a big club. You know, I'm very open on this channel, and I share everything, absolutely everything. If something is I think useful for people, I will share it. What I don't want to do is be in a secret little club and withhold information from people because I'm in a little secret club that no one else is in. Yeah, I just think the whole thing is just tacky at best. And, you know, I'm friends with Laura. I've known Laura for years, and I would say this to her face. I didn't know that Laura set it up, but I would say it to her face. I think that it is absolute bullshit. That's my opinion. And there you go. So what card would I want to be? I don't want to be in their club, so I don't want to have a card. I don't want to have a card. If I was asked to be there, I'd say no. Now, people are going to say, well, hang on, haven't you said in the past on this channel you want to go to 4F, which is an invitation-only magic convention? Yes, I do. That's kind of a different thing. It's easy to get an invitation to 4F because there's so many people that go. All you need are 2 referrals. It's just I've never been in a situation where I could go because I've always been busy or whatever the case may be. But it's not like they're holding people off. It's not like they say, oh, you can only have these 50 people that go to 4F and then nobody else. But that's what you've kind of got in this club. 52 people, and they are apparently the best, and it's just ridiculous. So I wouldn't want to be in there. I wouldn't want a card. What card would make me leave? All of them, because I don't want to be in it. Okay, so Mark McKay says, I've been watching some old Wizard product reviews lately, and I was reminded of what a great on-screen duo you and David Penn made. No offence to those that came after you, but the reason it worked so much better when you were there were the interactions between you and Dave, and it was just entertaining as the reviews were informative. While I liked the reviews and they remained informative, the entertaining dialogue was largely lost when you departed. A few episodes in particular had me rolling when Dave was performing a truly terrible product like Henry Evans' Instant Card Restoration or Baby Jade Rings by Alan Wong, pretending that like he thought it was the greatest trick ever, while you became increasingly incredulous of what you were hearing. I know there are some less than good times when you were there, but overall, how do you look back at your time on the Wizard Product Review? Would you ever team with David Penn for a one-time Wizard Product Review Union Review special? Okay, so that's great. 2 things on that. One, I think David Penn's great. I'm a big David Penn fan. I don't think that there's many people in Magic that has accomplished as much as him. I have said over and over again that David Penn is like the Madonna of Magic. He reinvents himself as a performer again and again and again. And as a business person, he is very, very astute. And he's got this natural ability to pivot before anybody else realizes that pivoting is necessary. And you can learn a lot by watching David Penn and listening to David Penn. And I had a great time on the Wizard Product Review. I had a fantastic time. And it was a very difficult decision to leave, but I knew in order to create the business I wanted to create, I had to leave the Wizard Product Review. I just didn't have time to give it the attention that it deserved. And it was a hard thing to do, leaving. It really was. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold at the moment. It was a hard thing to do. It really was, but I think it was the right thing to do. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I have so much fun doing the Wizard Product Review and some of the crazy stuff that we got up to. It's great, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I look back on that time very fondly, and I still consider David a friend. In terms of would we do a Wizard Product Review show reunion special, I actually did suggest that to Dave. I said, why don't we do a Wizard Product Review one more time, and don't tell anyone about it, and that week I'll just be on the sofa with you and it will be like old times. I said everybody would love it, and Dave didn't want to do it, and I understand why. The reason he didn't want to do it is because obviously the Wizard Product Review, which is now the Wizard Magic Review, has changed. It's now Sean Hayden and Wayne Fox and Paul Longhurst. And he said, if I came back for a one-off special, it would be very difficult to do the next episode and I wasn't there. And I kind of understand where he's coming from. And he's moved in his direction. I've moved in my direction. From my point of view, if I had a phone call from Dave Penn saying, let's do a one-off episode, whatever I'm doing, I would drop. And I would do it in a heartbeat. And I wouldn't even want to put it on this channel. I would just come over to wherever he is and I would film it. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but out of the two of us, I'm fully 100% on board. Okay, so the next question is from Sean Anjachak, who says, actually a couple of questions in the comments. Firstly, I was so happy for the return of the Magic podcast. An interesting topic that you discussed was about the trick Optrix Pro. Your conversation centered around tricks that took practice, that were not self-working, and why many people did not want to do a trick that just did not work automatically. I found the topic really interesting. One reason that leads to my question is something you did not mention, is fear. How many people do not want to do Optrix Pro because they're afraid of putting the spectator's own phone back in their hands? There was a flood of people who said you cannot put the quantum deck in a spectator's hand. Tricks like quantum deck, card in the box, or something like Blizzard, where you're going to pretty much do the method in front of everyone, I can easily understand why newer performers would be scared off doing such tricks. I was doing your trick Big Blind at a bar, and a bartender walked off holding 2 chips in her hand and go and serve customers. I kind of panicked a bit, but at the end of the day, the trick went off perfectly. So my question is, do you have any advice for people on how to practice, handle, learn, and not be afraid of doing tricks that I like to define as Tommy Wonder effects, where the magician executes a move in front of everybody? As a follow-up question, how do you handle it if someone catches you in a performance? If you're performing, palming a card, or someone sees you loaded a card under a box? Those 2 questions are pretty much the same. They're linked. It's a great question, and I love that type of magic. I love doing the sort of card under box, coin on shoulder, coin on back of hand, coin on the table and they don't know about it, all those sort of things. I love it. I get a kick out of it. It's my favorite type of magic. So how do you the reason that people are scared to do it, because they're scared of being caught, right? So that's why these 2 questions are similar. You say, how do you practice? How do you learn to not be afraid? And then, how do you handle it if someone catches you? It's the same thing. The reason you're scared is because you're worried someone is going to be catching you. My attitude is very simple. If somebody catches what I'm doing, excuse me, if somebody catches what I'm doing, I'm just going to turn around to them and say, yep, well done. You know, because here's the thing, right? If you're worried about being caught, what's the worst possible scenario? Let's take card in the box, for example. You've just loaded the deck under the box and someone sees you do it. And they say to you, you've just put the deck under the box. What? That's the thing that most people are scared of, being called out on something in front of everybody. If you just turn around and go, yeah, I did. Yeah, well done. What are they going to say to you? What could they possibly say? But you put the cards under the box. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yep. Well done. Do you want a gold star? Like, what can they say then? They can't say anything because you're acknowledging that they're right. I've talked about this on the channel before, but I had a friend of mine called Ethan who was a mentalist, but he did some sleight of hand magic as well. He's now living in Brazil, but he did some sleight of hand magic as well, but not much. But one thing he did is he did sponge balls, and he did them really well, actually. But he was morbidly afraid of being caught, like to the point that I wasn't allowed, if I went around his house, I wasn't allowed to talk method if his wife was there. Like, I remember once talking about a thumb tip and showing him my thumb tip while his wife was there, and he went nuts at me because he didn't want his wife to know about method behind tricks. He was very, very protective of people not knowing how it was done, because he used to kind of pretend that it was real. He used to take that full-on mentalist approach of, this is actually real. I remember watching him once in a gig, and he was doing sponge balls. It was a restaurant he was working, and he was doing sponge balls, and he put the ball over there, and the guy was like, it's in the other hand. You've stolen it out and you put it in the other hand. And he was like, no, I haven't. He's like, well, turn your hand over and show me that. And he was like, no, I haven't. I'll bet you 20 quid. And he was doing everything in his power. And the guy was like, well, you know, I'm not really that bothered. I just saw it go in the other hand. And he was waiting for the guy to turn away. And it was ridiculous. It really was. It was like, he was so morbidly afraid of being scared that he'd stopped the performance, broke character, and went full on mental over this moment with this sponge ball. Now, here's the thing. That happened because he was pretending that magic was real, or he wanted to put this persona across that magic be real. Me, my attitude, my persona when I'm performing magic is, this is not real. I'm going to con you. I have, as Liam Nielsen would say, I have a certain array of skills that I have developed over many years. Skills that I can use to, well, not kill you, but fool you, right? I kind of have that honest con man kind of approach to my magic, where it's not real, but I'm going to kind of make you question as to whether it is or not. But at no point am I telling them I'm real, or I'm really going to read minds, or I can really do this stuff. I openly tell people it's sleight of hand, and I spent years practicing it. Somebody at a gig a couple of days ago, they were like, oh my God, can you do real magic? I'm like, no. I said, what do you do? And he's like, I'm an accountant. I work in the accounting department. It was a corporate gig. And I went, okay, so the day you started learning how to be an accountant, are you as good now as you were then, or have you got better? He's like, I've got better. And I'm like, why? Because I spent so long doing it. I'm like, yeah, that's the same thing with magic. I've just spent a long time doing this, and I know how to do it. And any question you've got or anything that you say, I've probably had asked me a million times. So I don't pretend magic's real. And if somebody calls me out on something, which can happen, I just turn around and go, yeah, well done. Because what can they say? But it's gone under the box. Yeah, no, it has. Yeah. Oh, sorry, did you think it was real? No. And by the way, Santa Claus doesn't exist, and there's no such thing as the Tooth Fairy. Do you want to sit down and think about it for a minute? It's kind of, but less rude, it's kind of my approach. That's the attitude I want to have in my head, because that kills the whole thing dead then. It's just killed off immediately. I don't have to worry about it because it's killed off, dead, done. So that's the attitude that I'd take if I were you. I'd just kind of, at the same gig a couple of days ago, I was doing a card in the box, and this one guy, excuse me, he caught me load the cards under the box. Everyone else on the table, when I showed that the card was there and the cards were under the box, they were all like, oh my God. And this guy went, but they were already there. I was like, yeah, mate, that's the idea. The idea is that I put them under the box without everyone seeing. And he went, I see it, I saw. I was like, okay. They didn't, obviously, but I tell you what, just for you, let's see if we can go one step further. And I was talking to him, I'd loaded the card in the box, and he didn't realise. So I was saying, look, you hold on to the box, hold it in between your hands. I'll do it again. Is it under the box? No. Boom. Look, it's gone. And he went, it's not under the box. I was like, no, it's in the box. Have a look. And he opened it up and he took it in the box. He's like, oh my God, that's amazing. That moment from a second ago had been forgotten. And at that point, I then loaded the deck in the box, and I had the deck go in the box, and he was crushed, right? Don't worry too much about people catching it. Because if you worry about people catching it, you're never going to do that style of magic. If you want to do that style of magic, you have to accept that that sort of thing, people are going to catch occasionally. It's like doing pickpocketing. If you're a pickpocket, occasionally people are going to say, did you just take something from my pocket? If you can't deal with that, then go for stuff that's more self-working or stuff that you are in complete control over. But my attitude is the risk that I take, the small risk I take, is worth it for the style of magic that I like to perform. Okay, so the next question is, I'm too young to die. Who says, hi Craig, I've done gossip, I love it, but I've had people saying, is that person in different categories? Like, I had someone have Johnny Depp, and they've said, he's in different categories. I said, I didn't know your numbers, but is there something else I can say? Well, first of all, when you're doing gossip, right, the important thing is, you focus, when they've got the two numbers, and somebody's thinking of a list and somebody's thinking of a celebrity, you then tell them to fold that up and you put it away, right? It's out of sight, out of mind. Don't keep it out. Don't let them hold on to it. Fold it up. I'm going to put it away in my pocket. Okay, so you're thinking of a celebrity. If it goes out, nobody ever wants to look at it, right? If somebody says, hey, can I look at it? And let's say they've said Johnny Depp, and they look at some other lists and Johnny Depp's there, and they and I've never had this, ever. But if they make the question, if they make the statement, hang on, Johnny Depp's on that list as well, I'm like, yeah, first of all, it makes sense that he is. Johnny Depp's a well-known guy. He, of course, would be on the bests, you know, the richest list, and he'd also be on the most profitable list. It makes sense that he would. But look, he's on a different number every single time. So if you'd actually thought of, let's say you'd thought your number, if you'd gone onto that list, you would have ended up on Johnny Depp. You would have ended up with Tom Cruise. And they'll go, oh, yeah. That's why I set those lists up the way I did, because it is very conceivable for that person to be on more than one list. That's why I picked the people that I did. So hopefully that was probably a very cryptic question for people that haven't got gossip, but hopefully you understand exactly what I'm talking about there. Okay, next question is from Illusionist Ed Zeus, who says, hey, I'm very excited about one of my country's biggest book publishers contacting me. They asked if I'd be interested in creating a children's magic book, and of course I said yes. Besides the tricks themselves, I want to make an actual book special in some way. I was thinking you might have some fun ideas to make the book feel like a trick, something along the lines of the colouring book principle, etc. Yeah, off the top of my head, yeah, I mean, it's great that, first of all, congratulations. It's great that you want to do a children's book. That's awesome. Yeah, you could do a colouring in type principle where you show the book blank and then you show that it's all got pictures and it's got tricks in there. That's something you could do, but it's going to take up a lot of pages in order to pull that off. Years ago, I was thinking about writing a children's book, and I'd actually contacted people about potentially doing it, but then the pandemic hit. My approach was going to be to do a choose your own adventure and make it more of an actual book. So make it kind of more of a novel, but an old school choose your own adventure. But in each section, they learn a trick during the course of the story. And the story would be written so they would learn the trick, and the trick progressed the story in some way. And it was a little bit like a choose your own adventure, so they could read that book and do the story 3 or 4 times, and each time they'd be learning different tricks, and the tricks would be presented in a way that advanced the story, if that makes sense. And the publishers I spoke to absolutely loved that idea, but I never ended up doing it because of the pandemic. But feel free to take that idea and run with it. That's something that at least I know the producers I was speaking to really liked that idea. So, you know, maybe you can run with it. Okay, so the next question is Ian Walton, who says, "Hi Craig, hope you and your family are well. I just purchased a Jardine Ellis Ring and a booklet from Discount Magic, so I'd love to see a 5x5 on the Jardine Ellis Ring." Absolutely, my friend, I'm on it. Leave it with me and I will make it happen. That's something that I'm going to be doing sooner rather than later. So leave it with me and I'll get... Okay, so Yinhao Magic says, "Hi Craig, thanks for taking the time to visit and subscribing to my channel, and also spending a big chunk of this week's episode answering my question. No problem. I hope you've got new subscribers. I've watched a couple of your videos. I'm really impressed. Thanks for the feedback on my channel. I'll keep them in mind. Like I said, these popular videos on my channel were actually questions asked on groups and forums, so I'll definitely be doing more of those, and I already have some more content ideas based on a hobbyist perspective, so your words are exactly what I needed to hear. I'd love to review some of your releases in the future too. Yeah, I think I sent you some, didn't I? If I didn't, then just reach out to me and I'll make it happen, but I'm sure I did. Maybe I didn't. But yeah, if anybody's watching this, go and subscribe to Yinhao Magic. He's got a really cool review channel, and he's wanting to grow, and we can help him. So go and subscribe to Yinhao Magic. Okay, next question is from Archie Cox, who says, "Hi Craig, you say that you hope not to have as many releases this year as last year, but I can think of at least 10 more things you've mentioned in the past that could be released this year. What of your tricks do you think will likely be released this year?" I have no idea. I did want to do less this year than last year. I haven't actually done anything with Alakazam yet, so this year we're getting into June, halfway through the year, and I've not had an Alakazam trick come out. It's shocking. We've just had the Nightmare Recharged come out, which I fronted the project for, but it's not my trick. I don't know. The problem is working with production companies, Archie, I never know what's going to come out, when it's going to come out. I have no idea. Like, I didn't know until about 3 days beforehand, 3 or 4 days beforehand, that Credit Swipe was going to come out. That's 3 years old. I didn't even know. I do think, excuse me, they'll have 2 more Murphy's tricks out this year. The Savant deck is definitely the next one to come out. And then I believe the Gaff deck will be out this year as well from me and Lloyd. Those are the 2 big ones, I think. Could be wrong, but I reckon both of those will come out this year. In terms of Penguin, I've got a metric ton that could come out with them. Definitely going to see something from TCC. I would probably say, I don't know how many I did last year, I can't remember. I don't know how many have come out this year, but I could see about another 3 coming from Alakazam. I could see another 2 or 3 coming from Penguin, couple coming from Murphy's, 1 from Trick Trick Boom, and maybe 1 or 2 from TCC. So that's about 11. Could be more, could be slightly less, but I think 11 is where I'm at right now. So yeah, about 11. But definitely Savant deck is the next one to come out from Murphy's. Okay, so the next question is from Archie Cox Magic, who says, "What is some good books other than Absolute Madness? Because I've already got those, with a wide range of tricks, ideally simple and not too difficult. If you can get them," my favourite books are ones that are old magazines that have been put into book form. So my 2 favourites are The Magic Menu, which came out in 4 volumes, and the Collected Almanac by Richard Kaufman. The Almanac was a publication that he published for like 4 years, and Collected Almanac is full of stuff. Also, Apocalypse. There's like 4 volumes of Apocalypse. There's absolutely tons of tricks in those 3. So between Apocalypse, between Magic Menu, and between Richard Zelmaniac, there's hundreds of tricks. Some of them are difficult, some of them are easy, but all of them are kind of forgotten gems. So I would go with one of those books first of all, because also you're going to have one book with a ton of magic in it. Okay, so Mooney D911 says, I was wondering, when you first started out as a magician, how did you go about securing your first paid gig? And then also your first paid show, given you wouldn't have had a website or a past track record, etc. then? So, yeah, it's a great question. So the first, I did a few free gigs for people in Rotary clubs and so on and so forth and places like that. But the first, so... Okay, story time. This is going to take a couple of minutes, so buckle in. It is the last question anyway. So, right, okay, so I was, to cut a very long story short, I've done a few free gigs here and there and so on and so forth. But I'd set up my own company up in Leeds, a marketing company, nothing to do with magic. I'd set up a marketing company in Leeds, and it was very, very successful. We had Virgin as a client, but I became very ill, very, very ill. So, like, really ill to the point. Well, my gallbladder burst, and I was almost dead. And so I ended up in hospital, and I had to have emergency surgery. And I ended up being laid up for 3 to 4 months. I couldn't have run my business, so I sold the business and moved back down and moved in with my parents to basically recuperate. I then took the money of the sale of the house and I bought myself a house in the Midlands near my mum and dad, and I went to work for a company called Power, which is a gas and electric company. And I used my experience at doing sales to basically, I was hired to train new people in door-to-door sales. So the people that knocked on the door, I was training them up, right? So I went to work for Power, and it was a great job. It gave me a lot of free time because I had sales quotas that I needed to hit, but because I was very good at sales, I could hit those in like a day. So I had a lot of free time, and I wasn't working in an office job. So it gave me more time to practice magic and do magic and so on and so forth. And I did get, that's when I really started studying and really properly trying to be the best that I could be. And then I ended up being sick. I was really ill, and I got a doctor's note. I was off for 2 weeks, really sick. And during that 2-week period, I had an email, or a letter. It was an email. It was a letter from Power firing me for unauthorized absence. And I contacted them and I said, I sent a doctor's note in, and they said they hadn't seen it. So I was basically without a job at all. And so I did what I normally do in a situation like that. I fought it. And I thought to myself, I'm going to need to do, while I'm fighting this, I'm going to need an income. And so I took money that I had saved and I bought a load of magic, and I started running market stalls every day. From sort of, I'd have to get there at like 6 o'clock in the morning, pitch for my stall, get my stall, set it all up. I'd be doing different ones every day. On a Monday, I would do Bilston. On a Tuesday, I would do, I think it was the Rag Market in Birmingham. On Wednesday, I'd do West Bromwich. On Thursday, I'd do Stafford. On Friday, I think it was West Bromwich. Saturday was Birmingham Rag Market. I'd do a different market stall every single day. And I ended up making really good money from selling magic at market stalls. Like over Christmas, I was making like thousands every day. And so I was buying more stock in and more stock in. It was really great. And it was allowing me to perform over and over again. But all the time I was fighting this thing. And then I won. It took about 8 months, but I won. And they had to give me my job back. And I was on commission at Power. So not only did they give me my job back, but they had to give me my basic and what I would have made on commission for the entire time that I was away, which was a lot of money. And so they asked me to go into Power head office in Worcester. And when I went in, I went in, and my line manager was there who had fired me, and the HR person was there. and they shook my hand and they said, congratulations, welcome back. And this guy really pissed me off because he was so two-faced. This is the guy that fired me, and now he was smiling, saying, oh, I'm glad you're back. It really pissed me off. And I was sitting there listening to them, and they were like, oh, you can start up on Monday and blah, 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 blah. And I was thinking, right, I'm going to have to stop doing the market stalls. Damn. And they gave me the check and I walked out. And if you've ever seen that Columbo, there's that moment where he walks out and he goes, oh, one more thing. And he comes back and he completely changes everything. I had that Columbo moment. As I was walking out, I kind of turned around and I said, oh, by the way, thanks for having me back. And I appreciate the check. By the way, take your job and shove it up your arse. I quit. And I walked out and I never came back. And I went home and I spoke to my wonderful, dear, beautiful wife, Sarah. And I said, I've just quit my job. And she wasn't very happy, as you can imagine. And she said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to do magic full time. And she was even less happy. But that's what I did. And the reason I tell you this story is because I carried on doing the market stalls. But I thought, right, I want to be a professional magician. So I started making flyers. And I started making like flyers about close-up magic and kids' parties and so on and so forth. And as people were coming over and I was demonstrating magic, I was giving them flyers. And so what was happening is I was getting phone calls from people. I didn't even have a website, but I was getting phone calls from people that saw me on these market stalls going, hey, we've got a gig, we've got a thing, would you do it? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it, absolutely not a problem. So I was getting gigs coming in from doing these market stalls. And I got to the point where I was getting so many gigs coming in that I was having to, I was barely on market stalls. So that's when I made the decision. I set up a website while I was working in market stalls. First one was called Magic for Hire. And I was working with a business partner at the time who was also doing the market stalls with me. And we were getting so many gigs in. And one of the big things is we started pitching restaurants because we got a restaurant from somebody who saw me at a market stall. They said, hey, I've got this restaurant. Do you want to come in every week? And I was like, yeah. And at the time, they paid 200 quid for a couple of hours. And I was like, this is amazing. And so we got a lot of restaurant residencies and so on and so forth. He recommended us to a bunch of people, but we were getting a lot of people booking us, just seeing us on the market stall. So we set up a website, and that's when we started, basically I started going full time at that point. So I was doing magic, but it got to a point where I couldn't do the market stalls and do the gigs that were coming in. So I had to make a decision, and I made the decision to stop the market stalls and focus on the gigs. So that's how I got the gigs. It was basically, how I got my first gigs was basically putting myself out there and just that hustle mindset of I'm going to do everything that I can to make money. I had to because Sarah was furious. She was like, you have to make money doing this. I'm like, I will, don't worry. I will, I promise you I will. And so I was out there hustling, bringing money in to be able to show Sarah that I could make it a success. Fast forward many, 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 many years, and now Sarah's the managing director of this company, and all we do is magic. So, things work out. But that's how I got my first gigs. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. Thank you once again for joining me right here on this Q&A. I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget, there's a review show special going up this evening, so check that out. I will be back again soon with a brand new video, so make sure you look out for that brand new video. If you haven't already joined the Netrix, please do so. It's my online streaming platform for magicians. It's called Netrix.com, and we have thousands of tricks. So make sure you join in and you check out the Netrix. I'll be back again soon. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.